So here's another practice SAT problem, a grid in problem from a calculator section. They give us this crazy function here, and they say for what value of x is this function undefined. So hopefully it triggers for you right away that a function is undefined if you're trying to divide by 0. So when this denominator is 0, this function is undefined. And so that's the little note that I have written right here. So I thought, well, I need to know when that denominator is equal to 0. So when I set that denominator equal to 0, I've got a couple different ways I can try to solve this. I can try to isolate x. That's going to be a little tricky to do with this exponent here. So what you might think is well, this is a quadratic equation. It's just not really in standard form. So you could distribute here to get rid of that set of parentheses. You can't distribute an exponent into a set of parentheses. You'd have to write this out as x minus 5 times x minus 5 and expand that or FOIL that. So that process, that algebraic process, is not wrong. It gets a little lengthy because you're going to do those steps, combine some like terms, and then either try to solve by factoring or use the quadratic formula once the quadratic equation is in its standard form. Again, not wrong, not what I went ahead and did. I realized the calculator's in play. And if I can graph this side of this equation on my calculator, and that's what I did here. So I didn't graph the overall function. What you see on my calculator screen is not h of x. This is just the right-hand side of this equation. I was trying to figure out when the right-hand side of that equation was 0. So I graphed it, and then I used the 0 feature on my calculator to find this value. And the weird thing about a calculator is sometimes it's going to get pretty close to the answer, but not be perfect because it's using numeric processes that are pretty good, but sometimes have a little bit of a flaw within them. This should be a 3. The other thing I did, I looked at the table, and just to kind of confirm that this answer was supposed to be 3, I have the table on my calculator jumping by ones for my x values. And if you look at the y value that corresponds to the x value of uh, 3, I do see an error. Now, I guess this was not the graph of the denominator that I'm looking at the table of here. This is a graph for h of x, right? So if I put in this function, when is that function undefined? Well, that function's undefined at 3. If you would have looked at the graph of h of x rather than the table, you would have seen you would have had an asymptote on the graph at that spot.